everyone, and welcome to IoT Marketing Live, where we discuss the latest topics for IoT and other technologies, as well as the topics we discuss in our Industry Insights webinar series. I'm Tiffani Neilson, and with me is my co-host, Johannes Beekman. How are you doing today, Johannes?
I'm doing great, Tiffany. How's your day going?
Excellent. And last month, we hosted the Made to Order webinar on 3D printing, where we had over 2,000 people in attendance. What did you think of the webinar, Johannes?
It was an amazing webinar, Tiffany, and a really hot topic. And I was amazed how many industries are trying out and using 3D printing. It's virtually everywhere, just like the metaverse. And last but not least, I was really surprised how much progress is being made in 3D printing. From foods, we're printing more and more different types of food, to rockets, we're printing more and more different rocket engines and entire rockets. It looks like every rocket manufacturer has its own 3D printing program.
And those are great points, Johannes. In fact, the month prior, we hosted the Connected Food webinar, and our first few stories focus on both food and 3D printing. So, to kick things off, here's a story on food 3D printing firm Digital Patisserie. And they have announced the launch of their new pastry 3D printer, the Patas 3. Reportedly inspired by 3D printing technology developed at MIT, the extrusion based system is aimed at pastry chefs, restaurants, and industrial biscuit factories, enabling users to fabricate edible freeform shapes at high speeds. Are you ready for a slice of printed cake, Johannes?
Printed cake, absolutely, Tiffany. Printed tartelette framboise anytime. Printed tiramisu, it keeps getting better. The food 3D printing sector is on a roll. Oh, and by the way, I looked for information about the 3D printed Swiss rolls, but I couldn't find any. Bummer.
Maybe not yet. Well, what about 3D printed food from algae? Nutrition experts from Chile have used 3D printing to develop food for children that not only looks good, but is also packed with valuable nutrients. The healthy food simply contains dehydrated cacao, an algae that is commonly eaten in Chile. The algae is said to have healing properties. For example, it is used against heartburn and constipation, but also has a cholesterol lowering and weight reducing effect. With these 3D printed creations, the experts hope to revolutionize the food market in the future, especially in terms of children's nutrition. What do you think about that news, Johannes?
Well, we already discussed this in the Connected Food webinar, Tiffany. Our food is changing. It's changing all the time. And it's great that we can now 3D print new healthy food that is nutritious, looks good, and tastes good.
Well, the next story may be difficult to swallow. The headline reads 3D printing insects mixed with vegetables could help us to prevent the food crisis. As ScienceDirect.com reports, a team of researchers at Singapore University of Technology and Design, SUTD, has been looking for new ways to deal with future food supply problems and decided to just print some. Rather than eating crickets and larvae by themselves, researchers decided to combine them with more commonly eaten vegetables like carrots to change the flavor. I don't know, it doesn't sound as good as printed cake. What do you think, Johannes?
Uh, no, it doesn't, Tiffany. And I know that I will not be able to convince anybody who thinks that eating insects is gross. But in some cultures and countries, eating insects is considered a delicacy. And for the more adventurous among us who have made it and visited Bangkok and explored the night food market, will know that there are lots and lots of nutritious edible insects. So yes, printing insects with veggies makes perfect sense.
Well, other stories that piqued our interest that we didn't quite have time to squeeze in during our made to order webinar but involve 3D printing include a new concept for 3D printed hempcrete that could replace traditionally used concrete. Assistant Professor Pedro Sideris and his team at Texas A&M University intend to find out if 3D printing with hempcrete is a viable and sustainable solution for the US housing crisis. What do you think about that, Johannes?
Well, when you think of a 3D printed house, and there are several projects going on in the US, you will think it's made from normal concrete, Tiffany. And you would be right for now because of all the regulations. But regular concrete is not a sustainable and environmentally friendly material. And there's a lot of research going on to test different concrete mixtures. And this hempcrete article is a great example of how everybody is trying to make 3D printed houses more eco-friendly. And since we're on this topic, there are articles, and I have an example of an article that gives an extensive overview of materials that have been used for 3D printed houses, starting from concrete blends to clay to plastic and even steel.
Interesting. And technology is constantly advancing and pushing the envelope for what's possible. One attribute of 3D printing that may have been holding back its mass adoption would be slow production speeds, but not for long. Recently, a company called Freemelt announced its patent for a new freezing technology for finishing 3D printing. Swedish 3D printer manufacturer Freemelt has been granted patents for a novel approach to post processing that allows excess powder to be frozen out of complex parts. Designed for finishing powder bed fusion printed parts, the process involves filling them with saline water, which is then frozen in a way that breaks the links between powder grains stuck in their internal channels, making it easier to extract and eject. What do you think about that, Johannes?
I think it's a great patent, and just would like to highlight that this particular patent focuses on the after printing treatment of your workpiece. After printing treatments typically include baking or annealing and some kind of cleaning steps, but it also necessarily includes removal of excess material. And finishing parts with complex internal structures is always tricky. The removal of excess powder in an internal channel can be and actually is challenging. So this patent describes a freezing technology that does exactly that. I can see how this could work, but it will have to be thoroughly tested.
Thanks, Johannes. And next, let's discuss another 3D printing breakthrough. Bosch Advanced Ceramics, together with chemicals firm BASF and the Kyushu Institute of Technology, KIT, have developed what it claims to be the world's first 3D printed microreactor made of technical ceramic material. A microreactor is a small scale device designed to house and facilitate chemical reactions. To withstand the often extreme conditions created by these reactions, microreactors have to be stable in both high heat and corrosive conditions. But few materials offer such properties. Bosch Advanced Ceramics has now combined its expertise in ceramics technology with additive manufacturing to enable this one of a kind application. Sounds interesting. What do you think, Johannes?
It does sound interesting, Tiffany. And to provide a little bit of background, a standard chemical reactor that we normally use for chemical products development is a vessel with a volume of 500 cubic feet. This microreactor that was mentioned in the article has a volume of 10 cubic centimeters or 0.66 cubic inch. So it's tiny, which means that while we do understand the chemical processes inside a standard reactor very well, and we have been developing these microreactors for chemical and biological applications since the 90s, it's still considered an emerging technology. So it's great to see that this microreactor is being used for day-to-day research applications by BASF, because that is literally the next step to industrial application.
Thanks, Johannes. And our next story is on 3D printing applications for nuclear energy. Nuclear power is always associated with risk due to Fukushima and other nuclear accidents. Right now, there are 53 nuclear power plants under construction. Each one costs around $5 to $9 billion to build. In some cases, cost overruns have doubled cost estimates. Now, with rising interest rates, these expensive plants will be a bit less likely, and the cost to build the plants per kilowatt hour far outstrips that of other sources of energy. Nuclear is a very efficient power generating technology overall and gives countries energy independence that doesn't depend on the weather. I would have never thought about nuclear applications for 3D printing. What about you, Johannes?
Um, well, so there's a backstory here, and nuclear power plants are expensive, but they have a very long lifespan, Tiffany. Here in the US, with upgrades, We are trying to push the lifespan of a nuclear reactor to 80 years, 80 years. And a lot of parts wear out even in 40 years, so 80 years is going to be even worse. And that's what this story is all about. Second thing, after 40 years, a lot of the original manufacturers will have gone out of business. And that's exactly where 3D printing comes in. So GE, Hitachi, Nuclear Energy, Siemens, and Westinghouse have had projects in the past years to 3D print replacement parts, impellers, brackets, bearing housing for equipment used in nuclear power plants. And once you've turned your 3D scan of the original part into a CAD model, CAD model, of course, you can export that as an STL file and send that to your 3D printer. But you can also use that in an engineering project to improve parts, combine parts, or make parts more durable or more cost effective. And again, that's the forte of where 3D printing is right now.
Thanks, Johannes. And our last 3D printing story is pretty stellar, I must say. NASA recently started testing a 3D printer inside a vacuum chamber. This is being done in collaboration with AI Space Factory to build 3D printed test structures using a composite made from polymers and regolith simulant in a vacuum chamber that mimics environmental conditions on the moon. It's amazing to consider all these possibilities, wouldn't you say, Johannes?
Absolutely, Tiffany. This is technology that unlocks lots of different use cases. And if what it also shows is how versatile this technology is. So if we can 3D print in a vacuum environment, we can use it on the moon to print parts for the moon base.
Let's look at what else is happening in other news.
So, Tiffany, earlier this year in February, we talked about high-tech homes. When I came across this article in Yahoo News, it immediately piqued my interest. Tiffany, did you hear about Amazon's acquisition of Roomba?
I did, but please tell us more.
So there's a press release on the Amazon website, but the gist is that on August the 5th, 2022, Amazon announced that they had acquired Roomba's manufacturer iRobot. So very soon we can tell Alexa to start a Roomba. But on a more serious note, this acquisition makes Amazon a major player in the consumer robotics industry, which is again an industry with a CAGR of 20%. That, of course, it's dominated by the cleaning robots like the iRobot, but it also includes personal voice assistants, educational robots, and personal care robots. What do you think, Tiffany? Why is Amazon buying iRobot?
Well, personally, I'm a little surprised by this, Johannes, because according to Deloitte's 2022 Connectivity and Mobile Trends report, the average number of entertainment and smart home devices per US home remains high, but has dropped slightly from 25 to 22 between 2021 and this year. One of the key findings is that more than half of those surveyed are worried about the security and vulnerability of their smartphones and smart home devices. 40% of users are concerned about the data on their smartwatches and fitness trackers. So, why do you think that we are seeing a drop in the number of smart home devices, Johannes?
Well, I agree with you, Tiffany, that data privacy and data security, or the lack thereof, is a key hurdle for further adoption of more smart home devices. But I also believe that we are beyond the stage of the smart doorbell, the smart coffee machine, the smart slow cooker. So it's really the next generation of smart home devices that will drive this trend. And my belief is that the next generation will be much more complex. And it will need to meet a more generic need like taking care of the elderly, providing healthcare, teaching and education. Enter the personal care robots.
Very true, Johannes. And in August, we'll be hosting the Future of Connectivity webinar. And here's another acquisition story making headlines. Semiconductor maker Semtech has announced plans to acquire fellow chip vendor Sierra Wireless in an effort to accelerate its push into making Internet of Things components. Semtech makes a variety of analog and mixed signal chips, including long range, low power wireless RF connectivity, power management, and video broadcast equipment. Sierra Wireless makes dedicated IoT technology. Semtech has made steps toward this market, but a takeover of Sierra would accelerate their efforts. I know you have a background in semiconductors, Johannes, so what do you have to say about this news?
Well, first of all, Semtech and Sierra Wireless are leaders in the IoT industry and have been leaders for a number of years already, and they are major IoT solution providers. Looking at their product portfolios, they are fairly complementary. So that's point number one. Second, we know that IoT devices are very complex and that a lot of IoT projects fail because of this complexity. So for the IoT industry, this merger is a good thing because now we have a supplier who can provide everything from chips to connectivity to modules to gateways and routers, basically all the hardware. So the IoT developer can then focus on the software and application and deployment of the IoT product. So this would certainly help reduce the failure rate of IoT projects.
Big news coming from the White House this week as President Biden recently passed the CHIPS Act. The $280 billion bipartisan CHIPS and Science Act includes around $52 billion in subsidies for U.S. chip companies, $24 billion in tax credits for new manufacturing facilities, and the legislation also calls for a historic investment in scientific research and development that amounts to nearly $170 billion over the next 5 years. That's an $82.5 billion increase in the federal government's baseline authorization. While chips are critical for our digital future, I still feel that this is a lot of money. But what are your thoughts, Johannes?
Actually, it's long overdue, Tiffany, and that's what everybody in the semiconductor industry will tell you. The reason is, of one of the reasons is, the semiconductor industry is very capital intensive. So if we want to expand semiconductor manufacturing in the US, the government will have to invest this kind of amounts. If the government isn't willing to invest $50 billion, other countries will, and the semiconductor fab is built elsewhere. Second, the current chip shortage is partially a supply chain issue and partially due to the increased demand for chips. Since, if you look at the trend since 2016, there is a sharp uptick in demand for chips. And the reason is, and one of the drivers is, of course, the Internet of Things. The second driver is the digital transformation that has been going on for almost a decade now. These two trends were accelerated by the COVID pandemic. So, which puts us in a situation that we are now using more chips than ever before. This trend will not end, it will continue. So the semiconductor industry will continue to grow, will have to grow. Interestingly, and that is part of the CHIPS Act wants to ensure that future chips are made in all of America, not just in the locations where the current fabs are, but in all America, which means semiconductor fabs everywhere. And this could very well happen.
Thanks, Johannes. And there is a growing awareness of satellite technology's potential to move from a backup system into a mainstream connectivity tool and address the connectivity access divide. Modern technologies and customer expectations, partially driven by the pandemic, commands for good connectivity and, in many cases, real time data with ultra low latency and high throughput. By using satellite technology, rural communities and remote industries are no longer left in the technological void. Arguably, this functional change within the satellite industry is as big of a change as cellular was to the telecommunications industry. The big catalyst allowing for this change has been the emergence of low Earth orbit satellite networks, LEO satellite networks. With satellite constellations orbiting much closer to the Earth, they are enabling lower latency. New levels of connectivity will allow all users to understand the state of their environment and the state of their infrastructure. With this new continuum of connectivity comes a plethora of opportunities and possibilities. What are your thoughts on that, Johannes?
Well, Tiffany, to address the digital divide that we're facing currently, we need undivided connectivity, the same connectivity in the urban areas and in the rural areas. As we've demonstrated during the pandemic, many jobs can be done remotely. But if you want to move to a rural area right now, you can because you don't have the connectivity bandwidth to run your applications. Building more cell towers is not a solution, while satellite communication has capability to provide high-speed internet across the globe.
Thanks, Johannes. And if you've ever been on a cruise, then you know that connectivity is usually limited at sea. However, Virgin recently announced efforts to bring ESP to sea. Virgin Voyages is deploying Aruba's ESP, which is an edge services platform network, on all four of the company's inaugural fleet of cruise ships to help deliver real time services and always on connectivity for both passengers and crew members. The network is built to accommodate around 15,000 devices, including crew devices, PCs, laptops, and tablets supplied by Virgin Voyages, and also those brought on board by guests. The cruise line has an application to alert customers when to board the ship, sit for dinner, enter the spa, or disembark in their port of call. It seems like a good idea to me. What do you think, Johannes?
I think it's a great idea because, yes, you want to go on a cruise and relax, but you also want to stay in touch with the rest of the world, for one thing. In addition, and that's what this article also mentioned, this allows Virgin Voyages to provide a wide range of additional services. And in my opinion, it will include a complete set of virtual experiences.
So don't miss the boat. Be sure to attend the Future of Connectivity webinar on August 25th. We've got an amazing panel of speakers, and we're going to be talking about all the latest trends for connectivity. And you can register now at iotmktg.com. And the final story that I'd like to share is about climate. And as a preface, I'd like to highlight that several reports came out over the past week that Arctic ice is melting 4 times faster than experts originally predicted, which is why there's a migration happening as big tech engineers are transitioning to focus on climate solutions. According to protocol.com, engineers eager for purpose and impact are quitting their jobs to battle the climate crisis. Some industry pioneers making headlines include Chris Sacca and Bill Gates have both started climate VCs focused on decarbonization. Mike Schrofer recently stepped down from his role as CTO of Meta to work on climate solutions. And according to Justin Harden, the CTO and co founder of ClimateBase, a talent directory for climate jobs, since its launch in 2020, over 500,000 people have used it to find and apply for climate tech jobs. And the time is now for climate action. And I would like to emphasize the importance for all of us to do our part and help mitigate the climate crisis by driving innovation, reducing waste, and limiting our own carbon footprints. Anything you'd like to say about this important topic, Johannes?
Well, as we know, if you follow the news and if you look around, the sense of urgency around climate change is building, Tiffany, and each generation will look for and will find its own mission. It's logical that today's generation will choose addressing climate change as its mission because it is a very important mission and it's basically vital for our survival.
Thanks, Johannes. And we have some upcoming events that you will not want to miss out on. There's the Summit of Things event coming up on October 27th, which is an all day virtual event in a very experiential platform where you're able to visit booths, different stages, network. It's going to be amazing, and you will not want to miss this event. And you can find out more on our website, iotmktg.com. Anything you'd like to mention about the summit, Johannes?
It's going to be a great summit, Tiffany. There's a lot of interest already, and our speaker lineup is already looking very strong. We'll have several tracks and panel discussions, many interviews, training sessions, and a great event platform. This will be our flagship event of this year, and it's going to be great.
Thanks, Johannes. And there's also a few spots left if anyone's interested in speaking during the summit. So also contact us about those opportunities. And we have our third annual Industry Insights IoT Awards coming up this December, which will be hosted by myself and Steve Brummer. So you can nominate your favorite business or industry professional now, also at iotmktg.com. And to remind you, the entire Industry Insights webinar series is produced by IoT Marketing, and we offer a variety of different services from PR to marketing, content creation, design services, production services. So if you would like more information on any of those, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Anything you'd like to say about that, Johannes? Any final thoughts?
Just to wrap it up, we had a phenomenal made-to-order webinar last month, and the events that we've planned for the remainder of this year are equally strong, if not stronger. The Industry Insights webinars community is growing rapidly. The online events are attracting between 1,200 and 2,500 attendees month after month, and the IoT Marketing website is getting over 20,000 visitors every month. So join our community if you want to stay up to date, and contact us if you want to promote your company to our vibrant and fast-growing community.
Thanks, Johannes. And if you haven't done so already, please try out our new Industry Insights Webinars community. You can get a free 30-day trial now by visiting iiwcommunity.com. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today, and hopefully we will be seeing you on August 25th during Future of Connectivity and during the Summit of Things this October. Thanks, Johannes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tiffani.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Connected devices are getting smaller, faster, and cheaper. What types of connectivity will power the billions of devices expected to come online in the near future? Join Industry Insights webinars and IoT Marketing for the Future of Connectivity webinar on Thursday, August 25th, 2022, for a live panel discussion with Q&A. Discussion topics include data transparency and zero trust, how the wireless industry is adapting to COVID-19 challenges, new communication service provider operating models, and connectivity demands for IoT use cases. Register now to hear from our panel of experts and industry leaders on how to leverage the networks of the future and what to expect for tomorrow's connectivity ecosystem. See you at the webinar. The Internet of Things is reaching mass adoption as the industries using IoT rapidly expand. From smart buildings to smart cities, the Internet is connecting us in all new ways. Join Industry Insights webinars and IoT Marketing on Thursday, October 27th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the Summit of Things, which is a summit focused solely on the Internet of Things. This all-day live event will feature a combination of panel discussions, keynotes, training sessions, and more. Discussion topics include IoT for smart manufacturing, IoT security and potential threats, applications for IoT such as digital twins, and advanced technologies that complement IoT. Contact us if you would like to participate in this live global event and attend the summit to learn more about the Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, and digital transformation. Register now at iotmktg.com, and we will see you at the summit. It is time once again to honor the IoT and technology ecosystem for their efforts to push the industry forward with innovation, sustainability, and efficiency. The third annual Industry Insights IoT Awards will recognize IoT and technology businesses and ecosystem professionals for their success in 2022 with 10 award categories across a wide range of connected solutions. The categories for this year's program include IoT Product of the Year, Best IoT Security Solution, Best Blockchain Solution, Best Edge IoT Application, Best Sustainable Solution, Greenest IoT Solution, Digital Transformation Innovator of the Year, Smart Manufacturing Executive of the Year, Thought Leader of the Year, and IoT Executive of the Year. Join us for the live event on Thursday, December 15th, 2022, hosted by Steve Brummer and Tiffani Neilson, to learn more about the latest trends surrounding each topic and a showcase of the winners and nominees for each category. Register now to attend and be sure to nominate your favorite leader, business, or product.